Whether you're just starting or looking to perfect your runs in Windblown, I've got you covered in today's video. We'll be sharing 10 tips and some tricks to help you master this fast-paced adventure. Let's get into the tips. Tip number 1. Let's start with a fairly unknown but great tip that is nice and simple. The healing apples, I'm sure you've come across them in the game. Have you ever tried cooking them? You can use fire to cook these apples. If you do so, the amount of health that you will heal is increased by 25%. This might be a simple first tip, but man is it easy to increase your chances of survival. You can do this in any way using a fire weapon or a trinket. As long as it has fire to cook it, it'll do it. Tip number 2, upgrades and weaponry. Maybe you've got a little build going where you've got all the good synergies of burn or bleed or curse, whatever it might be. You have a build and you're steering away from taking the higher level weapons because it means you won't have as much burn or you won't have as much bleed. I highly recommend not doing this. Early on in your run, it is much more beneficial to simply take that next level upgrade of your weapons. The way you're going to get a better build is by using gifts to augment it. Your weapons are kind of a secondary to make sure that they complement the gifts you have, but simply taking a higher level weapon is going to give you those boosts early. Don't get me wrong, mid to late run, you're going to want to capitalize on those synergies. Early in the game, just take that better weapon because your build is going to change as you go on anyway. Another point on weapons I would say is while 100% you can have successful runs with double melee or double range, I highly recommend until you get used to the game that you stick to a blend, having a melee and a range. At least that way you're fit to fight most bosses from range or up close. Very quickly, if you're enjoying this kind of content and you like what you see, please hit that like and subscribe button and turn on that notification bell. It really helps me out grow. At the moment, only 89% of you watching these videos are subscribed. I'm trying to push for that 1,000 subscribers and it would be very much appreciated. Thanks ever so much. Tip number 3, spend cogs wisely. As you progress, you will get many options of where to spend your cogs. Focus on gift slots and health flasks and permanent buffs. Now, yes, you will have to have already ticked off the requirements of the number of unlock to be able to get those gift slots or those health flasks. So you're going to have to buy some of those cheaper things first. However, this should be your goal. I wouldn't focus so much on things that give you, I don't know, more weapons at the start of the game or more shells at the beginning. The recycle is useful because it will be consistent throughout the runs, but try and focus on those health flasks and the gift slots, because this is what will really change your runs and propel you to be able to go further and further. Another thing to note as well, don't buy the training. This allows you to get your weapons out in the arc. 2,000 cogs, it's not worth it at this point. Focus on everything else first, do that last, in my opinion. Tip number 4, memorize biome layouts. Every biome in Windblown has its quirks. Familiarize yourself with layouts, shortcuts, hidden paths to maximize exploration without wasting precious time and resources. There are some more obvious secrets out there, but you'll get to know some of the more difficult ones. And it's worth saying, the more difficult ones are more rewarding. They can be fairly hard to find, such as these pipes here as an example. Plus, if unsure how to get across this gap here, you can use the telepike from down the rope, or you can use your crystallize just to nip across. Then you can open the gate by backtracking and replace your weapon. Another example of this is go down the rope in the arc for an item, the cogs up on the boat. There's so many things to be found. Keep searching. There's plenty of benefits you will get. On that note, if you think there's some benefit in having a video showing you where all of the little secrets are in each biome, please hit me up in the comments because it might be something I start to build. Tip number 5, don't pray to the RNG gods. Do not aim for a particular type of build and search for it early. Until you've unlocked most things and understand what works with what, it's far more effective to build out based on what you're given. If you're given a massive weapon upgrade or a really good trinket, but it just doesn't quite work with some of the other things, if it's early on in the game, you know you're going to get other trinkets and other gift slots to be able to work with it. So go with what you're given. If you are praying to the RNG gods, you're not going to get what you need. It just won't happen. The game is about finding what works in those synergies, and sometimes everybody gets a bit stuck on that one build they like. Maybe you're an absolute glutton for critical hits, but you've not tried out the curse. Give it a go. You never know what might work. The possibilities are truly endless, and I've found a lot of the lesser, and I know I found that a lot of the things that I maybe don't like in terms of a playstyle have been very powerful, and I've ended up using regularly. Tip number 6, shells. Make sure you're spending them. They don't roll over between runs. So if you have that chance to use a potion because you can buy one to replace it immediately, you may as well do so. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes you're trying to save up a few shells because you need to be able to buy some upgrades on future shops. However, if you're sitting there with 3,000 shells and you're not buying things, you're going to regret it at some point when you die with those 3,000 shells and you think, I could have bought that potion before. Just use it. Obviously, if you have Midas Touch, it's a completely different story. Maybe you are building around having a big shell pool. It does work. But typically, if you're moving through the game and you're trying to progress further, spend those shells. Tip number 7, Headbanger and the Pirate Protector. So maybe you've already beaten the Headbanger boss, maybe you haven't, and maybe you've beaten the Pirate Protector, maybe you haven't, the hardest mini boss in the game. Are you always trying to kill that head after the Headbanger dies? I'm sure you've noticed when you kill the Headbanger, his head drops onto the floor and drags its body off the platform to its death. Well, not really. Did you know that if you kill the head, the Pirate Protector will always be the mini boss in the Rat Village? But if you do not kill the head will actually be the mini boss itself and will fight you. Now, I don't know about you, but if you fought the Pirate Protector, you probably know that it's one of the more difficult mini bosses in the game that isn't really worth fighting. Now, don't get me wrong, if you kill the head during the Headbanger boss, you do get some bonuses, but if I'm you and I'm trying to push further, don't kill the head. Fight it as a mini boss in the Rat Village. And on that note, if you have already got into endless mode, if you do at any point kill the head, you are locking the Pirate Protector in as future boss in every loop of endless. So think wisely. Tip number 8, synergies and alter attacks. Synergizing your build is key. I think we all know this at this point. Getting those gifts that all complement each other, finding all the scythes or all the burn or curse or bleed or alter attacks or crit, whatever it might be, it's huge. But there are a few things worth noting. Don't underestimate trinket refill speed, for one. If you can get some form of build that spawns trinkets very quickly, this can be a very, very powerful build, particularly if you've got something that, say, freezes. And every time you are using your trinket, it's respawning in a few seconds. You can pretty much stun lock a boss with the freeze. Once you get more gift slots and you're up to that, 5 or 6 gift slot range, it is worth having maybe 4 of those 6 as damage and 1 or 2 as a healing utility or a stat stacker. It's a great way to have that balance between survivability and damage. Another key note on this is finding those combinations of alter attacks that work well together. As an example, Paintbrush has a terrible alter attack in my opinion. If you're using a ranged attack and you get to the alter attack and your melee weapon is the Paintbrush, it's not going to reach the enemy, unless it's got the +1 100 sides, of course. Whereas the Heavy Blade alter attack, after you've been using your long range weapon, when you switch to the heavy, it does a long ranged kind of earthquake attack, which gives a great combination and it's good for stunning. It means that you're not wasting those alter attacks by not being close enough to the enemy to use them. Finding those synergies of those alter attacks is another great benefit, particularly if you're using 2 melee weapons. Tip number 9, unlocks and skins. I'm going to give a bit of a spoiler alert here. If you don't want things spoiled in terms of what you can unlock, just skip on to tip number 10. There'll be timestamps in the description. Unlocking skins in the game isn't really spoon-fed to you in terms of how you might unlock them, as well as some of the weapons that you can unlock. I'm going to give you a few hints and info on how to unlock those skins. So if you defeat the game on each difficulty, you will unlock a unique skin for each. But there is also a skin called the Project 2501. This skin can only be obtained by killing the tentacle-headed enemies in the incubator zone. It only has a very rare chance to drop, but can be found. So if you're looking to get all of those skins unlocked, this is where to do it. Additionally, you may not be aware that once you get to those brothers at the end of the game, the order in which you kill them is key for the unlocks. Killing the red guy last, as an example, will give you the fire claw weapons. Finally, tip number 10. Play with friends. Playing with people is easier and far more enjoyable. Not to say solo isn't fun. I've had some amazing fun playing solo and some really good runs. But in multiplayer, you can share your build items. You can drop weapons, you can drop gifts, so that you can find those perfect synergies for your entire team. Plus, you can make sure that they synergize with each other as well. Don't forget, those buffs and debuffs apply to the team. One such example of this is the necromancy gift that heals you upon a kill. But that can also be triggered as long as one of your party members kills them. So you can end up with an interesting strategy that when one of you gets low on health, if they've got necromancer, they can hide away and you can heal them up by getting kills. There are a lot of multiplayer synergies that you can play around with. You can get to a point where you're stacking fire and curse and bleed on enemies all at once. But also, you could just get to a point where you all have a fire build. So all your damage is scaling based on them burning. There are multiple ways to go around this. Keep trying. My biggest tip is find people to play with. Obviously, you can matchmake in this game, but if you manage to get some people to play with, I highly recommend it. Please check out the Discord as well if you want to get involved in playing some multiplayer games. There's a small group of us that are enjoying this at the moment. And there you have it, 10 tips and tricks to help you Windblown. Now, this isn't a detailed step-by-step guide by any means, and maybe that's something I do in the future. But if you've got any additional strategies or favorite builds, drop them in the comments, please. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and turn on that notification bell. It really supports me get to that 1,000 subscribers, and it would be very much appreciated. My next videos coming out are going to be around the Ravens Watch patch that goes live on 30th of January. I'll leave a video up as well for Ravens Watch because I've done some additional content on that roguelike, hugely underrated, as well as a guide for Path of Exile 2 trading. Please check them out, give us some love, and send in the positivity as always. JammyGiraffe.